That's right. It's another late night and time for another reach into the Just Giggle It grab bag. And tonight we're pulling out. Oh, look what it is! ESPN Idiots. Just Giggle It sketch number 69. How we doing tonight?
Football. You know what I'd like to do today, Dragon?
What?
I just like to go and watch a perfectly good game of football. Okay, so tonight we are talking about ESPN Idiots. Dragon, this is one that I have been partial about since it was uploaded to the channel. And I am here's the deal, folks. I am not a sports guy at all. I mean, I root for my local teams, and my local teams have had some success. Let's go Giants, let's go Warriors. You know, those are kind of like our two crown jewels in terms of sports teams in the Bay Area. But something to say, I've never really the act of actually sitting down and watching like a 3-hour sports game is just kind of like, Dragon, I'll watch an hour, I'll watch like a 3-hour marathon of like 5 Survivor episodes. But, I don't know, like just a sports game, just like from front to back, it's not really that engaging for me. But Dragon, I've always kind of liked the talking head quality of Sports Center, and it's not something that I ever watch, willingly, but it is something that's always on in the background during holidays, specifically, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, when the family's getting together and the big game's on the TV, and specifically after the big game's over, and this is where everyone's really not paying attention, and these idiots on the Sports Center are just kind of like blabbing on, talking over themselves, getting names wrong. And Dragon, I gotta say, like, as someone who's just kind of like passingly familiar with Sports Center and what this is riffing, I think they did a fantastic job of just kind of like emulating the style of it, emulating like what makes these guys kind of look kind of dumb, how they're constantly cutting each other off and, making the same point over and over again and just kind of trying to fill space. I got a lot of amusement out of this one. I really did. I take it you don't feel as strongly about it.
Look, I don't dislike this at all. It's just, again, it's one of those examples of it's kind of a sketch where I think you're going to get the most enjoyment out of it if you're dialed into that world or you fully get kind of what the parody is. Where me, again, I try to avoid, sportsmanship at all. Well, sports at all costs, and sportsmanship because, we need more sportsmanship.
All cost, Dragon?
No, we need sportsmanship, darn it. No, but all seriously, my point is, again, I try to avoid sports like the plague because they tremendously bore me. It's the fact that I do, particularly football. I got nothing.
But perfectly good game of football.
Exactly. So honestly, this one to me feels even with the parry that they're doing. I gotta be honest, I'm of two minds about it because it kind of feels a bit unfinished. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. It just feels kind of basically. Usually, Just Giggle kind of runs with the runtime so perfectly, even if they have a sketch so brief. Usually, they hit their points. I'm not saying they don't quite hit the mark here. I'm just saying that this one feels a little brief even for them with the subject and the topic. And again, doesn't necessarily make it bad or anything. Just not one of my favorites. If you catch my drift.
No, I hear you. Honestly, I could have easily taken a whole other minute of this, and I'm sure they've probably filmed other takes and, outtakes and improv and gags and stuff along the way, probably. Because I could imagine that going on with something like this, just, the stars trying to one-up each other here. But Dragon, what I will argue with this sketch, what I really do think, and this is kind of like pulling from what I know of Sports Center, is from what I know, there as the big game's going on, these Sports Center things kind of pop up just to fill time, just to kind of fill commercial time. They're basically bumpers in between bigger blocks of commercials to kind of give the audience something to get padded out with. And so with that in mind, Dragon, literally all they're trying to do is fill time. So with that, I will get into it with the actual sketch, but the back and forth with with Poncioooooo constantly talking over, and just interrupting everything and making the same points. Like it really is kind of like I do feel like a indicative of how SportsCenter, just like especially the blips in SportsCenter, especially the the little the little bumpers. It really is reminiscent of that. So
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know what
argument.
color commentary is in the sports games because I mean, I've seen these things pop up. I just don't really stick around because at a certain point, it's like I know nothing of this world. Why do I want to know about like where the players came from? Why do I want to know this? It's
Pretend they're talking about Pokemon. No, I'm serious. Instead of football stars, just pretend they're Pokemon trainers. They're talking about their Pokemon trainer sweethearts that met in high school. Dragon, they met in high school.
Sure.
All right.
Anyway.
Okay.
So let's see. In terms of the background, we got a little bit here. So this was directed by someone who we've rarely seen, if ever seen, Mark Mahoney. He directed this. It was written by Poncioooooo.
Poncioooooo.
And also, it was co-written by Poncioooooo and Mark Mahoney, and it was edited by Jason Ramlow. I suspect it was kind of I think Joshua Thomas. Joshua Thomas had limited involvement in this one. I want to say he was an assistant editor on this one. Basically, there's an abbreviation. I'm assuming AE stands for assistant editor, but I could be embarrassing myself right now. It's not getting what the actual abbreviation that stands for. So that one's probably on me. The point being, Josh Thomas had kind of a smaller hand on this one than he usually has. Usually, even Joshua Thomas does the edit. At the very least, maybe he didn't do the major edit on this one. So, anywho, it could be After Effects. Well, I was going to say After Effects, but by the same token, I mean the whole SportsCenter logo and everything. I don't know if that would fall under it or not. So let's just I'm just going to plead the fifth on that one. Regardless, let's see. Oh yes, here's one. So this feels very much like it's pulled from the Joshua Thomas vault. It really feels like it is because there's an indicative sign of it. Piper Hinson has darker hair like she had in the earlier days. So this suggests to me this has been kind of on the back burner in the vault and has been liberated.
I do have a feeling this was one of the ones that was plucked up and like released to us from that infamous Joshua Thomas Prince vault that we talked about.
Well, actually, we're still there technically. We're not complaining about it. It's kind of comfy in there. Like you have there's a few armchairs in there. There's like an ice cream bar. It's like kind of like a home theater setup. It's really nice. It feels very much like the, the work site for the Super Lab from Better Call Saul season 4. It's kind of like that. It's the giant warehouse. It feels a little bit like the warehouse, just subterranean.
Right. Fair enough.
Technically, we're still in the vault, but again, not complaining. Just we're kind of comfortably waiting for our day. But of course, while we're in the vault, hey, look what's on the shelf there, Tiki. Oh my God, it's Harley Quinn and the Joker, episode 6, which we can only see by watching.
6. Did you say episode 6? I've just gone my whole life thinking that episode 5 was the only one. Dragon, that was it.
I know, but Tiki, it's right.
The last year and a half or so.
Tiki, we're staring at it right now. It's on a shelf there in a film can. Do you know what this means? That means the only way we're going to get that thing out of there, the only combination to the Joshua Thomas vault, the only way to liberate episode 6 of Harley Quinn and the Joker versus the real world, the hot sensation. Say it.
1 million views.
That's right. Get episode 5 up to 1 million views. Folks, we're more than halfway there.
We're there. We're getting there, folks. We're climbing it. We're climbing the ladder slowly but surely.
Just need to get to 1 million views. And episode 6, it rolls on out of here like an orange, and it's going to be up there and then out in the stratosphere to be viewed and enjoyed by millions. Because you're going to watch Harley Quinn and the Joker versus the real, as you already have, I suppose. And you're going to get to the end of it. You get to episode 5, which so far is the most dazzling out of the whole bunch. You say, oh my goodness, that was so fun. I love it. But you know what? I want more. Where can I find more? Again, more is available. All you got to do is get the view count up. Spread around. Tell people about it. Tell your neighbors. Write your congressman. Tell them about this show. Get the view count up so we can get more episodes. Darn it.
What will Piper Hinson sing to one-up her rendition of "Oh Danny Boy"?
Exactly. There's only one way to find out.
All
Anyway.
right. Okay, so with that in mind, Dragon, do you have any notes on Mahoney here? Do you know like how he's connected to JGI?
Well, that's the thing. I know very little about. All I know is Mahoney stars in this. He's the other commentator guy.
Okay, gotcha. So he's a little bit of a mystery man of the JGI verse.
Which again suggests to me he's kind of like an unsung hero from the early. If I were to speculate, and again, this is Tiki and I kind of playing the dumb the dumb commentators here. We know nothing about these things. We're just going to try to jazz it up here by saying it a few times. So Mark Mahoney. in all seriousness, so Mark Mahoney here. As far as I bet smart money. So speaking of that, I'd imagine that he's from the early JGI days. I'm saying like the the Yuka days of JGI, the early formation. The improv days. When they all formed at the improv. The UB. God, I'm blanking on the abbreviation right now. The UBC, UB. Yeah, I think it's UBC, isn't it?
Sounds about right, Dragon.
Well, I'm probably embarrassing myself right now. So anyway, the point being, the early formation of JGI when they basically had all sorts of players, kind of like the UK, kind of Mickey Rooney, Dave, like, hey guys, we got all this equipment. Let's do a show. Let's do a web series. Let's do videos. Let's make sketches, man. Just kind of like, hey, my uncle's got a barn. Let's put on a show. That old mentality. And I'd imagine like
sketches in a day.
Exactly, 3 sketches in a day. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, okay, Spider-Man shade aside, seriously, back in the days they were putting out a lot of great stuff there. And also, I'm sorry, before I get any further, actually, JGI they weighed in on our little kind of trashing Spider-Man.
Oh no, okay. Well, keep in mind, I was the one who was more on the side of Spider-Man than you were. Like I think to a certain extent.
Well, it wasn't anything negative. It was just the fact that basically they kind of solved the mystery for us. Like, how could it go so wrong? And again, it was kind of busy doing the 3 sketches, but also Josh Thomas at that time, even in the early formation of JGI, Josh Thomas was heavily involved in a lot of the early sketches. And in this case, he was the least involved on that one. It's Brian Wiley, I believe, coming to the table with it and kind of like taking point on it. Again, it was just basically it was kind of blissful, the arrogance of youth, one might say.
The arrogance of youth.
What I recall, Josh Thomas was never 100%, and that's basically, so apparently that's why the ending is there. The ending is there because that's Josh Thomas kind of in the editing process trying to salvage it, and that's why he puts the joke at the end, which again essentially has one of the funniest jokes in the whole thing, aside from just Brian Wiley's performance of the Scorpion. So actually, so it was kind of cool. It was really cool just kind of find out, okay, so that's how it happened. All right, I was kind of glad to find that out. Really
chalk it up for a deleted scene in the eventual biopic, Dragon.
Yes, like Brian, listen, you're a talented guy, but this is never going to work. Come on, Josh, give it a try. All right, we'll see what happens. Like, I don't know what I was thinking.
I mean, you have to realize, folks, we're going big with this biopic thing. Like, we're not just gonna do the pitch of the biopic. We're going to do the pitch of the Blu-ray of the biopic, Dragon.
Yep.
We're gonna lay out like which characters, like we're gonna get like which characters are going to star in the commentary tracks, and I don't know.
Okay. And anyway, my point is, I would imagine, given Joshua Thomas's, Josh Thomas of the many impressions, the many kind of characters that he can portray, one of the many hats that he wears, including wigs in this case, is Tommy Wiseau. And given his Tommy Wiseau, I would be shocked if there's wouldn't be a runner in the early days of, oh, hi, Mark.
Especially in the LA scene, yeah.
Especially. So, point being, I'd imagine Mark Mahoney's probably in the early days, and of course, like a lot of the early players of JJ, over time, they kind of died off, and maybe this guy didn't make the final cut in a lot of sketches, or again, maybe he's in sketches we just haven't got.
Mark Sipka did reveal that, yes, in fact, in the LA comedy scene, Mark is, like, you can't be a Mark in LA comedy without having, oh, hi, Mark, thrown at you a million times.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just kind of realized, oh yeah, well, there's another Mark in JGI, therefore he could have always just kind of pulled the oh hi Mark. Doesn't necessarily have to be this Mahoney character, but regardless, I think the fact of the matter is, again, he's probably
Mahoney is like Nega. Mahoney is like Nega Sipka.
Well, okay, let's not go that far. Okay, no, in all seriousness, though, I mean, the fact of the matter is he's either in a sketch we haven't gotten to yet, or perhaps again, maybe just kind of using sketches like this that originally maybe didn't make the cut. And of course, thankfully, years later, the vault cracks open and it kind of gets into the ether and we get to see it now. So that's kind of cool.
All right.
All right, so yeah, let's just break it down. This one's going to go by like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So, first of all, I love how rapid fire the jokes are. We start right away with Poncioooooo just straight up like.
Well, hold on. First off, we have the Sports Center graphic, which I believe is. Of course, we saw something like this with the World Marriage Fighting Championship, with like kind of the fancy, sports logos. We have like kind of the fighting championship of the federation. Now we have just kind of like Sports Center. Boom.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Okay,
so we have our three anchors.
Then and might I say the set is very impressive.
It is. I mean, the background, the table, all the technical trims, like the little, the crawl and everything that's going on there, the ticker, and all that.
Sidebar.
Yeah, it's all very. That's what I'm saying. Like again, I'm assuming they had to recreate that Sports Center graphic. I mean, I want to say again because given the World Marriage Fighting Championship, it looks like is them kind of toying with kind of the CG logos. And again, I think it looks really flawless. Got to be honest, it looks like it's very high quality, very on the money.
Mm-hmm. All right, so like I was saying, Poncioooooo starts out by botching the name of the player he's talking about, like Lewis Clark instead of Clark Lewis.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
That was probably like a dyslexia moment. Like, oh yes, I know Lewis and Clark. Yeah. All right.
Anyways. I think it's Mahoney who actually started that one off.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
We started with Mahoney again. Initially, I thought it was a name flub, but I didn't. That's something you would. This is what I'm talking about, Tiki. So I just assumed like, okay, maybe I don't know if it's a flub or something like where Mahoney got the name.
I'm pretty damn sure that's intentional, Dragon.
No, I think you're absolutely right on that because again, you got to imagine the whole time they're doing that. I mean, on the side there has the guy.
But you have to keep in mind the thesis for this sketch is right in the description. It's what is the worst broadcast you've ever witnessed?
That's a good point. And
so there we go. I mean, I think like all the errors that we see are totally intentional.
I think with that in mind, I think you're absolutely correct. But and of course, I mean the proof in the pudding that something that must be intentional. I guess in retrospect is that if you look on the left, you have the guy's name kind of listed properly. With Carl, with Clark Lewis.
Exactly.
Because so I just basically it's almost like the Shift Thomas thing from The Dark Knight. Is it Thomas Shift or Shift Thomas? The way like Batman, does he say backwards or does he say forwards? Anyways, no, but also it's probably just like an intentional flub to kind of complete the parody. All right. So Tiki, what's the news? What tell us about Clark Lewis or Lewis Clark, depending on your.
So he finds himself knee deep in a scandal, Dragon. He was caught at a South Florida strip club, hanging around with women. All right, Dragon, you ready for this?
Ready for it. I'm ready for it.
All right. That's right. He was fooling around with women who he was not legally married to, Dragon.
Women who aren't his wife.
Yes. Oh, God. Scandal, Dragon. Scandal.
See, the way I read this is that it's kind of a satire of commentators on. I mean, you were basically in there. They're trying to fill airtime. You're absolutely right. But I kind of read it as well as that. Sometimes when something major isn't going on in the sports world, they have like a slow day of kind of stuff to commentate on between like games and just kind of like in those bumpers. It's just that.
I imagine go to bachelor parties at strip clubs all the time for each other's weddings.
Sure, I'd imagine. So it's just.
I can't imagine like a sports guy being caught at a strip club will be that big of a deal, really.
Yeah. I mean, unless he was like, if he's like pulled over by a cop and like drunkenly, kind of like caught for like it has like a DUI with a stripper in the seat, maybe that's something. But again, like not in the.
Right.
I'm just like he went to a strip club. He's married and he went to a strip club. It's not exactly. I mean, maybe it's either a troubled marriage. It's either a troubled.
I think that's the joke. Is that Poncioooooo especially is just very offended by this.
It's either a troubled marriage or like a bachelor party. It's one of the two things, honestly.
Right.
Okay, regardless, the idea I kind of read it as, it's like it's a slow day and they have very little information on the subjects and they're just trying to jazz it up, which is why you have these two idiots with very little information just trying to go back and forth with it. Oh god, it's ridiculous.
Mahoney's kind of straight man, right? Like Mahoney's kind of just like trying to get the information across, very very straightforward. But Poncioooooo is always just like, "Oh, I'm gonna cut you off there." And basically he's just repeating what Mahoney just said. He's like, he's been hanging around in South Florida strip clubs with women who aren't his wife, who he's not legally married to.
He's legally married to one person, and that's his wife.
Any other woman in these past women have careers, jobs of their own. None of them were married. sorry.
That's the thing, it's like, it's just
basically on and on. You know what I mean? It's just very rapid fire.
Exactly, and of course, and this is great. Here's where we're just going to get to the third element of things here. So we have Poncioooooo with a mustache. Remember when the thing dropped? They kind of put in the comments. I just love the fact that Poncioooooo with a mustache. Basically, instant points for Poncioooooo with a mustache, something along those lines. I mean, when in doubt, just Poncioooooo with a mustache. You can never go wrong.
What about upside down Poncioooooo with a mustache dragon?
That's too mind blowing to comprehend, Tiki. I know over here. Anyway, so I'm sorry. Now I'm just picturing that.
Poncioooooo is Gordon.
Don't try to make me cry on here. Don't do that. No.
Walk away and we're still in as we speak, Dragon. We just have to find it.
God, anyway.
Right. Anyways.
See, if Poncioooooo wasn't Howie, then anyway. Okay, no seriousness though. So, okay, so again, but the point is they're echoing the same information. Then we get into the third element of the sketch. So we have Poncioooooo with a mustache. We have Mahoney as somewhat of our straight man. Then we have Piper Hinson as the announcer in the middle. Now, of course, the gag with her. I love that we have the camera pan on her, and she gives a smile, basically kind of having the smile and nod approach to the whole sketch, and just kind of we can just read on her face of like, why am I here? I just keep like she can't get a word in edgewise, and the idea I read as these idiots will say whatever before they let her speak, before they let her get a word in edgewise. They'll keep going over the same information. And again, I would say it's almost like it's kind of we do a lot with unspoken comedy in this. It's unspoken comedy with her specifically, where she didn't say a word, but it's kind of hilarious what she's doing with those little kind of like snippets of her just kind of in between things as we cut to her.
Yeah, just like every time it cuts to her and she's like about to speak and she gets cut out off and her reaction, it's very well paced for sure.
So we have like a little bit of silent comedy there. We have just unspoken comedy in the sense of like, okay, there's kind of an understanding in kind of the DNA of this sketch that we're not really announcing, we're not really addressing, but it's there for those to kind of pick up on. And of course, I think just in the structure, it feels like kind of an exercise in repetition, like almost like an improvised repetition exercise. It's kind of what it feels like. It feels like they were given, okay, here's the model, guys, just kind of run wild with it. Just going over the same information. Just shake it up and make whatever you want with it. Just make sure she doesn't get a word in edgewise. It feels like that's kind of the direction, or at least kind of the concept in a lot of this. That's just my read on it.
I could see that, yeah.
All right, so then Poncioooooo comes in with, these women have careers, jobs, lives of their own. And they've never been married to Clark Lewis. I don't know why I keep going Carl Lewis. I'm sorry.
Arthur's just like on a tear with this thing.
Yeah, he is. So let's see. So then just go back and forth. He was completely on his own until the point when he proposed to his wife and became not single.
And that's right. They were high school sweethearts. They met in high school. We'll get back to that line.
We will. Of course, I love the fact that he I read this. That's right. I read this in the bio.
In the bio, yes. Thank you. In the bio.
I love to think of just like in this announcer's kind of headspace and the only little headcanon for this guy is like, oh man, it's a slow news day. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm just going to read the bio here. Like, oh, isn't that nice? They were high school sweethearts. Might do something with that. It's going to like file it for later. That's what I like to think his mindset was. But again, I don't know. All right.
It's like he has no ill will towards them. Like he still thinks it's sweet that they're high school sweethearts, but he has to play it up for the drama of it all.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I read those after all that.
They
Of
met in
course,
high school.
and in a little town called That Ain't Your Wife No More.
Yes.
That ain't your wife no more.
Oh
Yes, a
man.
little town. Basically, it's like this little town call. He's about to kind of throw lob another insult there, but then things take a dark turn. Tiki, you brought deleted scenes. I have one of the deepest pulls I could ever pull.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
Tell me.
not the deepest, but like I'm saying, like we're nearing the end of the well deep.
All right.
So Poncioooooo sneezes and he sneezes blood, and it's just this gory,
Yep.
like, oh yeah, it's just the point is like it's like on live airing and playing into like the worst broadcast stuff here. Now I have no idea if Poncio or Mahoney potentially looked at this or not. Again, it could just be for the comedy's sake. But again, in terms of being a broadcast and kind of a newscast sort of thing, in the deleted, okay, do you remember the scene in Bruce Almighty where Bruce is messing with the Evan Baxter character? Of course,
Yeah.
Evan Baxter, who went on to be in went on to form
Oh
Noah's Ark.
God. Oh man. One of the
But
worst.
back before any of that terribleness, we had Bruce Almighty, where they all said, "Hey, Steve Carell." Back in those days, one of the early movies that going to help make Steve Carell.
And I still like Steve Carell, but Evan Almighty is just oh man.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but seriously though, let's focus on the positive. So Bruce, you remember Bruce Almighty? You remember the scene where he's messing with him? He's like making him blab like an idiot on there. So that scene, I don't know if you recall this, because they had really Tom Shadyac, who has a very fascinating story in his own right, but I don't have time to get into it right now. Tom Shadyac, he believes in quality DVDs. I always love that about the guy. His commentaries, his bonus features, a lot of deleted scenes. And with the deleted scenes, there was that scene originally went longer, and it was cut because as it went longer, it went darker. Like Bruce did really bad stuff to him. So after he was blathering like an idiot, it kind of went on and basically cuts off before all the bad stuff happened. So what happened was his nose began to bleed like profusely. A lot, and then his hair caught on fire. So as I'm saying, I do wonder if like it's kind of like just having this silliness go on where you have like your anchors and just like your one anchor kind of his nose bleeds on air. I wonder if maybe that's a deep cut to like the Bruce Almighty deleted scene. I wonder. I don't know. Again, deep pull. I'm afraid. Sorry. Okay, back on point. The point is Ponce.
My favorite comic beats, it's another non-verbal thing, is Mahoney just kind of like taking that beat, that pause, right? Like after Poncioooooo comes up with the bloody nose and Mahoney's clearly a little bit shaken by this, and he's just like, oh God, should I go forward? And he takes a beat, he's like, yes, and then what does Poncioooooo do, Dragon? What does Poncioooooo do?
So again, Poncioooooo, he just without that's the thing, because again, it's almost like a battle. Again, I guess in the kind of the task of improv for this potentially, it's like you can't let the other guy get a word in edgewise. You got to keep interrupting each other. So he interrupts him even with a bloody nose, like a crew guy's like an assistant's trying to like hand him a tissue and everything. He's sparking away. And he's like, I have to disagree with you.
Have to disagree with you there.
Yep.
What's going on about some like monologue about tortoises who live 100 years compared to a week?
Okay, so two things. So one is saying like a week is not a long time to. Oh God, I'm sorry. To be in the major leagues, like a week is not a long time to be in the major leagues. To a tortoise who's over 100 years, who's lived 100 years, a week is not long. Being the difference between minor leagues and major leagues, and the idea. I do wonder though. I wonder if the whole tortoise being 100 years old maybe is a deep cut Nemo reference. Again, I'm kind of searching on that one, but the whole I met a sea tortoise. It was 150, not 100. That whole. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so my craziness aside here. So the point is, like talking about he was basically going over the obvious information they established at the very beginning. He says he was in the minor leagues and he was then drafted into the major leagues. He's not in the minor leagues anymore. Oh God! And then of course, so then Piper Hinson comes in with her first line of the whole thing. Here says, "Well, I think," and then
I think.
Well, then essentially it's not credits, but it's the bumpers. Basically, the logo pops up again. The idea is that's the end of the little bumper, the little broadcast, and then we have the B-roll. So basically, this is still the ending of the sketch here, where the B. You can tell it's the B-roll because like the little ticker at the bottom like tells you like what the timestamp is. That little thing. It's like what's on deleted scenes a lot of the time. But like when people are just they do B-roll behind the camera. So I believe Mahoney says something along the lines of, I don't even know why I have bullet points. Basically, he thinks he did so. This is quite hilarious, though, in retrospect. He thinks he did so well, disseminating such little information. He's looking through his cards. Like, I don't even know why I have bullet points. It's like the idiot thinks it did so well. And then Piper Hinson just like after that response is uttered, what does she do, Tiki?
She just like bangs his I'm sorry. Does she?
She kills him. She kills Mahoney. She
his neck, right?
Yeah, she breaks his neck. Just like.
Just like
either paralyzes or kills the man. Yep. And then Ponciooooooo's saying, "Hey!" and then just gets his head bam on the desk.
No, I don't think Poncioooooooo's dead. I think
no, he's alive.
Yeah, God.
It's a hate crime to kill Poncioooooooo.
Poncioooooooo kind of got off.
Yeah, it's a hate crime to kill Poncioooooooo. Don't you know that? It's like an unspoken rule. You can't shoot wild Ponciooooooos. They're comedy gold.
Ponciooooooos, oh God.
Anyway,
all right.
And of course,
so then we get my favorite bumpers this side of Upside Down Poncioooooooo, just because it's so pleasant.
This is ingenious. I really wish they bring this back because I know what they did here. So the idea is, of course, they reuse some of these bumpers. That's the subscriber tag, or as I like to call it, I kind of deemed it a new name here, the tag gag.
Yeah.
So Piper Hinson, she's dubbed over. She's gonna go over I'm sorry, you want to take us through the
yeah, sure. So basically, she's saying like, "Hey guys, I'm so glad you watched that episode. Now my favorite part was they were high school sweethearts. They met in high school." And of course, we see her mouth moving to that line, but we clearly hear Poncioooooooo. And then she's just like, "Isn't that funny?"
The one you just have the instant kind of pleasantness of Piper Hinson just being she's got charisma. I don't know. It's just like, even in the little tag, it's ordinary.
Piper just sharing her favorite joke. It's almost kind of like it's like the personal touch that I like about JGI. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so again, we always talk about just kind of the acting, kind of credibility of Piper Hinson. We just have a little bit of the personal credibility and kind of the subscriber tag. But it's kind of what's so great and brilliant about this, the idea if they're going to reuse this. They basically would have this pre-written thing, and then basically as she kind of like pauses and just kind of like says something, whatever it. Again, they haven't. I don't. This is the first and only time I've ever really seen this one, to my recollection. I haven't really seen this one a second time. Maybe I just haven't gotten to it yet, or maybe I'm blanking on what other sketches this was attached to. The idea is they could play any audio from any sketch. They're like kind of like one of the funniest line from the sketch. They could play at the very end there over that little bit. I thought that's so ingenious. I wish they bring back. I mean, either it's too much work, or it's kind of like, yeah, no, we'll just do some other, because they've done stuff to Katie Garland recently, and like the subscriber take. And I love when they shake it up. Of course, like Upside Down Poncioooooooo, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, and that pretty much brings us to the end. Dragon, final thoughts.
Final thoughts for me. Look, this is a sketch that somewhat lies in the middle, but I gotta be honest, kind of talking through. Again, look, there's a lot of. This is a funny sketch. It is. Like, there's nothing wrong with this sketch. It just doesn't have. I'm just so used to, even with the briefer sketches from JGI. This one does not have much of a direction or a plan that's kind of like there out on the surface, but it is funny. It's funny in a quirky way, which is different, but not bad. It's just which. I think JGI has built up a lot of credibility where, there's so much credibility, they're allotted to kind of go off the reservation, do something like kind of brief and just kind of little. I mean, it feels like an experimental sketch. That's the best way I could put it. And experimental as movies like Dunkirk. Dunkirk is an experimental film. Or does it have like your traditional your characters? They have your traditional your main lead. No, it's because it's about just kind of the nameless soldier amongst a bunch. Can you keep track of any of those names? Probably not. Is it still mind bending and just well told? Absolutely. And here we have something kind of a smaller scale than Dunkirk. I think I overshadowed with the Dunkirk comparison, but still, let's just go forward with this. It is a clever satire on on kind of like sports commentators. I mean, the humor is there. I think the wit is there. I just feel either it's a little brief for its own good, or just it's kind of something it's just different from what they usually do. I mean, it's you kind of have to read into it to fully appreciate that. That's like the one, not a knock, but that's the one thing I'm kind of left with at the end of the sketch. You really have to read into it to fully appreciate it. But on a surface, like if you didn't really, if you just took this for what it is, it's just Ponzi with a mustache, but then we have like kind of these bits where we have like the pause and everything what they're going for there, which is it. It's funny. It's just not the usual kind of like layered or kind of direct setup payoff that we get from Just Giggle It. So not one of my go tos for JGI, but definitely it's a solid entry. And again, just feels like an unfinished sketch or something pulled from the deep archives of Joshua Thomas. This is just the vibe I get from it. So it's. I'm glad that we saw it. Though. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's just kind of out there. It's just like, even when it was first kind of put up there, it's like, I mean, I think it's well made. I just don't know what to make of it. And that's kind of where I'm at the end of the day. It's good, not one of the eye catchers. All right.
Okay. So yeah, in terms of final thoughts on my end, folks, Dragon, I don't know. I just like, as someone who has, of course, this is reminiscent of podcasting as well to a certain extent. So you do kind of like try and find ways to fill the time and to I don't know. I really appreciate this one. I really like, is it one of the most refined sketches JJ has ever done? Does it have like a big setup and payoff? Not really, no. But it's just, you can tell the actors are having a blast with it. Even Piper Hinson, who's not getting a word in, is having a blast not getting a word in. And I don't know, I just find it really charming. I feel like the parody that it's trying to duplicate is really on point. They really nailed it. And visually speaking, I feel like if this is in fact one of the very early JGI sketches, it looks fantastic for an early JGI sketch. So yeah, I am very much on board with it, Dragon. I'm glad we finally got to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Right, that does it for now until the next fascinating reach into the Just Giggle It grab bag.
They met in high school.
High school.